What's up, everybody? Welcome to our first episode of Audibles, where we give you our unbiased insight on fantasy sports. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jared.
I'm the other co-host, Garrett. It's very nice to meet y'all. Welcome to our Starts of the Week segment, where each of us is going to give you our favorite start of the week for each position. We'll go back and forth. He'll give his start, I'll give mine, and we'll start with our quarterbacks. Who's your start of the week?
I like Ryan Tannehill this week. He is playing against the Jaguars, who are the 30th ranked defense against pass. They absolutely got destroyed by Joe Burrow last week on Thursday Night Football. He threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I think Ryan Tannehill is going to have the same success. So that's my favorite start of this week.
Hey, can't deny that, especially when they need to have a bounce-back game after losing to the Jets. And nobody likes losing to the Jets.
And hopefully they get A.J. Brown or Julio Jones. Either one of them will be a tremendous help, but I think they're both going to come back this week.
Both of them should be back, as far as I know, from the things that I have looked at lately, as far as beat reporters have been saying. Don't forget that the Jaguars also traded away their 9th overall pick from last year in C.J. Henderson. They traded them away, so that takes away their defensive backs. Also, we have the Vegas line of a 48.5 over-under when Tennessee is only a 4.5-point favorite. So that's going to tell you right there that the Jaguars should be able to keep up with them on offense anyway. So should be able to stay competitive where they're not just going to rely on Derrick Henry.
Who do you like this week at quarterback?
So far, as of right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is still hurt. So as of right now, the 49ers should be starting Trey Lance. And I love Trey Lance this week. We all know how a running quarterback is broken for fantasy, and he's got the rushing upside. He's also one of our greatest college talents coming out in a while. He had his last full season in college. He threw 28 touchdowns, had 0 interceptions, also had 1,100 rushing yards with another 14 touchdowns on top of that.
I know that 49ers fan base is really excited to see him, and he had a great rapport with Deebo Samuel, so that's another player to watch out for this week because he looked pretty damn good last week.
Yeah, and the Vegas has the 50 over-under with Arizona only being a 5.5-point favorite, so they're projecting it, even with Jimmy Garoppolo projected to be out right now, for it to be competitive. I'm excited to see Trey Lance in his first action.
This will be a good start.
All right, getting into our running back starts of the week. Who do you got for this week?
I like Leonard Fournette. He is playing the Dolphins. They are the 27th ranked defense against the run. They have a 10.5-point favorite for the Bucs. So there's going to be a positive game script for Leonard Fournette. He had total domination over that backfield. He had 23 touches. Ronald Jones was nowhere to be found. He did get that one vulture touchdown, but I think Leonard Fournette's going to have a big week this week. What do you think?
I'm going to have to say that I agree. Like you said, it's going to be a positive game script. Anytime that you're playing with a 10.5-point favoritism, that just bodes well for running backs. And like you said, if he's dominating the touches, you're just going to have to project that it's going to go towards him.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if we go back all the way to week 1 for Miami's defense, they gave up 100 yards to Damien Harris. They gave up 82 yards to Devin Singletary and a touchdown. And let's not forget, Josh Jacobs was hurt week 3.
Yeah.
They picked up Peyton Barber off the couch, and he still got 111 yards and a touchdown.
He tore them up.
And then Jonathan Taylor last week with Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith still out on their elite offensive line. He still was able to put up 103 yards and a touchdown. Everything's boding well for Leonard Fournette.
Be a good week. Who do you like this week?
Well, we just got done talking about him and what he did to the Miami defense in week 1, but I love Damien Harris this week basically for the same reason. New England is a 9.5-point favorite. Very, very positive game script, and I don't see the Texans doing anything against that New England defense.
And a lot of people are talking about Brandon Bolden as a possible start. I don't see him taking that backfield away from Damien Harris. Damien Harris is a clear-cut leader in that backfield. I think he's going to have a good week.
He's disappointed as of late, but when you have a positive game script like it's going to be coming up, like we said, 9.5-point favorites, you got a bad defense versus a good offensive line. They're going to go up by a score or 2 and then just run the clock the rest of the way out because that offense is not going to do anything against that defense. Yep. And let's not forget, even last week with Buffalo, when Buffalo, 40-0?
Yeah.
Blew them out. The Buffalo running backs combined for 140 yards and a touchdown. So I look to see Damien Harris blowing them out as well.
All right, now we're going to move into our favorite wide receiver plays of the week. And my favorite wide receiver is Hollywood Brown. He ripped off a 49-yard touchdown last week against the Broncos. Colts have given up a 40-plus yard reception 3 of the last 4 weeks. I think Marquise Brown's going to hit a home run this week.
I can't say I disagree with you. Out of all the Colts defensive backs, none of them are really up to par as far as speed. When you know how Hollywood Brown is a burner.
Yeah.
You have the old man Xavier Rhodes. You got Rocky Sin, who has been a letdown as far as since he's been drafted in the early second round. Kenny Moore, who's primarily just a slot cornerback. He's good against the route runners, but he's not a very fast cornerback, so he's not going to be able to keep up with Hollywood Brown. As long as he's able to hold on to the ball from the week before last when he disappointed, he really only disappointed because of the drop touchdowns.
Yeah.
If he would have held on to those 3 catches, that would have been a monster week. So I look forward to seeing Hollywood Brown continuing the torch.
I know you had a couple of favorites in mind, but who do you like this week?
So my favorite wide receiver this week is Emmanuel Sanders versus the Chiefs. So far, he's one of the top wide receivers as far as air yards go. He's just getting downfield. He's getting open. He's earning the trust of Josh Allen. The Chiefs gave up 387 yards to Hurts last week as well. And let's not forget.
It looks like a high-scoring game this week, too. So
yeah, we have a 56 over-under as far as Vegas is concerned right now. And that's just screaming points across the board. And since KC is only a 3-point favorite, I look to see a lot of points going towards the wide receivers in this one and look to see Diggs and Sanders being monsters this week. For our tight end starts of the week, I'm going to go ahead and start it off. I love C.J. Uzomah this week. He's coming off a career game against the Jacksonville Jaguars on that Thursday night game. He had 5 catches, over 90 yards, and a touchdown. Let's not forget that he's playing against Green Bay, and Green Bay has given up 2 touchdowns in week 1 to Juwan Johnson. T.J. Hawkinson torched him. Kittle had over 92 yards on him. Now, I understand Hawkinson and Kittle are some of the top 2 tight ends in the league, but they're obviously just bleeding points to the tight end position. I like C.J. Uzomah this week.
He looked like a man unchained last week. After missing most of the year last year, he looks like he's back. That knee is healthier than ever. He did look good, and he looks like a good safety net for Joe Burrow, so that's definitely a good tight end pick this week.
Absolutely. He showed that he can break off a big gain as well. Vegas has it at a 50-point over-under, and that's with Mixon possibly missing the game due to an ankle sprain. So if Mixon is out,
somebody's got to find those points.
If Mixon's out, they're going to have to pass the ball a lot more to be able to keep up with Aaron Rodgers, and they only have Green Bay as a 3-point favorite. So they're definitely going to have to keep passing. And if Higgins is also still out, the ball's got to go somewhere, and I like C.J. Uzomah.
Well, I like Mike Gesicki for the Dolphins against Tampa Bay. I know Tampa Bay has got a pretty good defense, but they are 30th against the tight end. And he's ripped off 13 points and 14 points the last 2 weeks. He's catching fire. I would feel more comfortable if Tua was the quarterback, but Jacoby Brissett targeted him, so he looks like a pretty good pick in my opinion.
I love Mike Gesicki this week as well. Counteract your point, he wasn't getting any targets with Tua, so I'm actually extremely happy that Brissett's a quarterback.
That's true.
Fuller's going to be out with a broken finger, so those targets are going to have to go somewhere. With that Tampa Bay pass rush, he's going to have to get the ball out quick as well, and Gesicki's going to be the perfect target right there. They're bleeding points again, like you said, 30th against the tight end. Kyle Pitts, who's been overall disappointing this year, had his best game so far against Tampa Bay. The Rams, Higbee had a touchdown.
Higbee went off.
And last week alone with the Patriots, you had Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith were able to get touchdowns at the tight end position. So I look to see Mike Gesicki doing the same thing. Jumping into our bust alert of the week. Now, this is going to be a player that has generally been relied on so far this year. They've been putting up big numbers, but somebody that we think could very well disappoint this week. And for this week, week 5, I have Mike Williams versus Cleveland. Now, Mike Williams has been great so far this year. He's been on fire, except for last night against the Raiders. Unfortunately, he did put up a dud, but so far he's been looking as one of Justin Herbert's favorite targets.
Especially in the red zone. He's been a big red zone target.
Big red zone target, but we can't escape the fact that Cleveland's defense is
Cleveland's
on fire.
Solid.
They're just stomping everybody right now, punching everybody in the mouth. I'm just not very favorable on Mike Williams this week.
Yeah, and I also have a pick going against a tough defense. My pick is the number 3 quarterback, Jalen Hurts. They shut down Dak Prescott for 188 yards last week. Granted, he did get 4 touchdowns, but those 4 touchdowns could have easily gone to Ezekiel Elliott. 188 yards is not a lot, and Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback Dak Prescott is. I think he's going to throw 2 interceptions this week, and The only way he'll salvage his game is if he gets a couple rushing touchdowns, in my opinion.
I could see that. I don't generally like to bet against the running quarterbacks because, like we've said earlier in an earlier segment, that running quarterbacks are broken in fantasy. But when it comes to something like this, Carolina's defense has been pretty stout so far. They did play against lesser teams, but it's not like the Eagles are one of those high-flying teams that we're all scared of. When you got your number one wide receiver is a rookie, that's generally not a very good thing. They do have two pretty decent tight ends, but Carolina's been pretty stout across the board, and I can agree with that. Maybe he won't be a bust across the board, but he's not going to put up the points that you're going to expect from him week in, week out.
All right, we're going to give you some of our favorite picks for daily fantasy.
For that FanDuel main slate, this is only going to deal with the main slate, so you're not going to get some of that early 9:30 game action or the Monday or Sunday night games. Who are some of your favorite quarterbacks for this week's main slate?
This week, I'm going to have to go with Sam Darnold. It's an obvious pick. He's been on fire, but I think he's going to go off, and he's still fairly cheap. He's $7,600. He hasn't broken that $8,000. It's I think he's under the radar still. And he's looking pretty good. He can get you some touchdowns on the ground, too, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, he's been shown to be that type of vulture. He made everybody who was upset about spending all that fab on Chuba Hubbard when you got him coming out there taking 2 rushing touchdowns. And I think a lot of people still aren't on the Sam Darnold train because he still has that Adam Gase stink on him. But it's starting to look like he's got that. When you leave Adam Gase, you turn into a star coming into it. So
he's still got that stigma of being a Jet, but he's coming into his own, so I think he's turning into a great quarterback.
Absolutely. And FanDuel is something that I usually like to pay up for my quarterbacks, which can't pay up much more than for Kyler Murray at $8,500 against the 49ers. It should be a competitive game. You have that rushing upside. And don't forget, when you got D-Hop on the team, can't be upset when you have a whole mess of different wide receivers.
It's got some good young wide receivers, too, and Kirk and Moore. And don't forget the old man, A.J. Green.
The old man, A.J. Green, is actually leading the team in receiving yards right now, if I have my numbers right. Aaron Rodgers also at $8,000 against Cincy. Cincy's still Cincy. I don't care what anybody says. That defense is not that great. They have Jesse Bates. It's about it.
And Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers.
He's got Devontae Adams. And Aaron Jones even lines up outside as a wide receiver. So
absolutely. And then if you want to get into some of our cheaper options, you still have Joe Burrow at $7,000. Green Bay's defense hasn't been what it's cracked up to be this year. You also got Trevor Lawrence all the way down there at $6,500 against Tennessee. And as we were talking about in our starts of the week, it should be a competitive game between that Tennessee game and Jacksonville game.
Yeah, my favorite cheap pick this week is definitely Mac Jones against Houston. That Houston team looks putrid. They gave up 40 points to Buffalo last week, and they couldn't score anything. I'm a little afraid that it's going to get out of hand and it's going to turn into a Derrick Henry game, but I mean, Damien Harris game.
Yeah, it could definitely be a running back game for that one, but Mac Jones, it's still $6,700 against Houston. You're paying $6,700 for a quarterback. You're only asking for him to get about 15 to 20 points, which shouldn't be that hard.
You can understand why Derrick Henry's on our mind because that's who we need to build around this week, I believe. He's at $10,400, and that's why I got some cheap options. I like the New England stack with the Mac Jones, the Hunter Henry, and Jacoby Myers. That's my favorite stack with Derrick Henry this week. But we do have some good contrarian plays, too, that we need to talk about.
And Derrick Henry does feast on those terrible defenses, and Jacksonville is a terrible defense. But $10,400, that is a lot, and he is going to be very high rostered. It doesn't matter if it's GPP, doesn't matter if it's a cash lineup, very high rostered. So I like to be a little bit different, come out with somebody like Dalvin Cook, who's a little bit hobbled right now, so it might scare some people away from him.
But Detroit, come on.
I'll take a 70% version of Dalvin Cook against Detroit any day. And then you can even stack him with Aaron Jones, who's $8,400.
But what about Madison?
I ain't worried about Madison. If they come out and say Dalvin Cook is starting, then Dalvin Cook is starting. Madison might get 5 touches at the most. But if Dalvin Cook's playing, I'm starting him.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
A couple of our other cheaper running backs. We have Trey Sermon all the way down there at $5,800. I mean, if you are gonna go out there and choose to build a team around Derrick Henry, you can't get much cheaper than $5,800 at a starting running back on a team that loves to run the ball. Kyle Shanahan is a running back guru,
and Elijah Mitchell does not look like it's trending in the wrong direction for him. So, and it's looking like a Trey Sermon week again this week. He didn't get the touchdown last week, but he did run for 89 yards, so that was definitely encouraging. And I think he gets a touchdown this week.
He's looking a lot better. He's looking more comfortable in that offense. And like you said, Elijah Mitchell, even if he does play, because he tried to play last week, but he's just trying to get out there. He's just that burner. He's like Raheem Mostert. That's why Shanahan likes him.
He's got to prove himself, too, and get a spot in that roster. He can't let Trey Sermon run away with this job. So,
yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan, he runs that team however he likes, but he's going to get some type of scrutiny if he goes out there and just automatically puts Mitchell in when Sermon's been looking great. Yep. So at $5,800.
That 49ers fan base was super excited about Sermon coming into this season. They were upset that he got the did not play coach's decision the first week. So,
and on top of that Cardinals defense, even though it's been pretty decent as far as their pass rush is concerned, but as far as the running game goes, they're allowing 5.4 yards per carry, which is great. And they got a good offensive line over there at San Francisco.
I really like DeAndre Swift this week against Minnesota.
Absolutely.
I think he's been stellar this year. He
disappointed last week, don't get me wrong, but Dan Campbell did just come out and say that you're going to see a lot more DeAndre Swift. He did say that, and then here comes Swift with a dud game, but that's also why we like him for daily fantasy.
He's going to bounce back. A lot of people are probably going to stay away from him this week. Minnesota looks like a tough defense, but I think they're going to put some points up on him this week.
Just keep an eye out for Anthony Barr. He's been out so far every game this year. If Anthony Barr comes back and he's on that edge rush and helps that D-line out, then maybe we can stay away from Swift. But as far as a daily fantasy pick, people are going to be scared of his dud from last week. You might be able to get him under 10% off this week.
Last week, Minnesota gave up 170 yards rushing to the Browns, so between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So I think DeAndre Swift can get over 100 yards this week.
Absolutely. And then for wide receivers, I don't think we're ever going to have something as great as DeAndre Hopkins at only 7,500. Somebody who just demands targets, and you get somebody like that for under 8,000. You can't get much better than that.
Yeah, his hip was worrying some people last week. Didn't know if he was going to play or not. He did play. He didn't really have a great game, but it's DeAndre Hopkins. Anything under 8,000 for Hopkins, you got to smash that button.
And you're getting the best wide receiver in the league for 7,500. You can't get much better than that. You also get somebody like Mike Evans, who his targets have gone up the last 4 weeks. You got targets on week 1 from 6. You go to 9, then to 10, then to 12 targets last week. And you can get somebody like that for 7,000. Can't get much better than that either.
Another cheap wide receiver this week, I like Jacoby Myers to go with that Mac Jones. It looks like he's his favorite target down there in New England. Nelson Aguilar hasn't really been doing too much this year. And the tight ends get a little bit of play, but they don't get a ton of targets.
Let's not forget, the Patriots are playing the Texans. Nobody's scared of the Texans. No. Jacoby Myers is $5,900. And when you're paying $5,900 for somebody who's getting 9 targets, 6 targets, 14, 12 targets last week, you're only paying $5,900. And if you're paying up for Derrick Henry, if you're paying up for those top tier players, you can pay something like $5,900 and get those type of targets.
Jacoby Myers definitely a huge value this week, I think. And he's that underneath route kind of safety blanket for Mac Jones that
easily been Mac Jones' favorite target.
For sure.
And another cheap one, $5,800 for Laviska Shenault. DJ Chark is now out for the season. Now, Shenault he's got the stigma on him so far this year of being that short guy. The screen game, the short, quick slants.
A lot of people were worried because they lined Tavon Austin on the outside even after Chark was gone. They didn't line up Shenault out there,
And if you watch that game, Jacksonville versus Cincy, there was this one play where Trevor Lawrence was scrambling to the outside. He was right at the sideline. Any other quarterback would have thrown it out of bounds, but he launched it back across his body and perfect dime throw right down, 20, 30 yards downfield to Laviska Shenault. He's going to start getting those deep targets and all those. He was already getting close to 6, 7, 8 targets a game, and now with Chark out, I expect him to get more targets and more deep targets as well.
And Trevor Lawrence was one of your quarterback plays this week too, right?
Absolutely. And if you want to go ahead and stack Shenault and Lawrence this week in daily fantasy you can afford those top-tier running backs, it's not a bad way to go.
Looks like a nice cheap stack this week. And this new tight end in town, Dan Arnold, I think he's going to be a good play this week too to stack with him.
Absolutely. Dan Arnold is only 4,800. If you want to just punt the tight end position so that you can afford those top-tier players, Dan Arnold is a perfect punt play, and I believe you had a punt play as well, right?
I got Ricky Seals-Jones, Logan Thomas, week to week right now.
Not going to play this week.
Seals-Jones came in and played 93% of the snaps. That is insane, and he got targeted 4 times. So I think he's going to get over 5 targets this week for sure. And I think he's going to see the end zone this week, and it would be a great punt play for under 5,000 on FanDuel.
Absolutely. What was he, 4,900 this week?
4,900.
For 4,900 for one of the most athletic style tight ends as well.
And Heineke likes those tight ends.
Absolutely. Heineke likes to move around the pocket, and if he can't find anybody open, it's either dumping it off to Gibson, McKissick, or finding a tight end real quick. So if he can't find McLaurin down deep, he's throwing it quick to somebody.
McLaurin's definitely a good play this week, too, with Logan Thomas out. He targets the heck out of McLaurin.
And just like you said, out of your favorite stacks, Hunter Henry, I mean, just like we said with Myers, you're playing the Texans. He's really cheap at 5,400. All you have to do is you're hoping to get somewhere around 10 points, and he's a very good option as far as hoping for a touchdown as well.
Yep. And Jonnu Smith has a little bit of favor too now. He's been getting some targets. It could go either way with that, but I think I'm leaning Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry, like we said in our starts of the week, can't get much better than Mike Gesicki against the 30th ranked defense as far as tight ends are concerned. And then Darren Waller. I mean, when you have a top 10 or a top tier tight end that isn't over 8,000.
Dude got 19 targets the first week. That is crazy.
He's just getting peppered with targets from Derek Carr. And don't sleep on Derek Carr either. I mean, he's leading the league right now in passing yards as far as I know, if my numbers are correct. So you can't.
He was averaging 400 yards a game going into last night's game. That probably hurt him a little bit because they had an off game, but he's definitely been one of the best quarterbacks coming out of nowhere this year.
Absolutely. Sure. And Darren Waller is his best target on the team. Don't sleep on him either.
And I think we got a couple defenses we like this week. Who do you like?
So one of my favorite ones this week is going to be Pittsburgh's defense. When you get a defense as elite as Pittsburgh, I mean, they haven't been all too great against the pass, but they're playing against Denver, and Teddy B's out. Well, two-glove Teddy B's out.
Yep. And they don't give away anything when it comes to the run. So
no, you cannot run against Pittsburgh, so they're going to have to rely on Drew Lock to beat them, and I don't see it happening. You got Minka Fitzpatrick out there playing center field. It's just not going to happen. You got Pittsburgh's defense at 4,000 against them. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, they're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to have to hope that Drew Lock and Noah Fant can beat them, maybe Cortland Sutton as well, but I have no faith in Drew Lock.
I like Las Vegas Raiders this week against the Bears. Matt Nagy's got to go. He doesn't know how to use Justin Fields. And they're talking about, Andy Dalton's the starter when he's healthy. No, Justin Fields is a starter. That's why he drafted him first round. He needs to have the offensive line built around him. They need to structure the playbook around Justin Fields, and they're just not doing that. And Las Vegas is going to put some pressure on. What's the defensive lineman from Las Vegas? That's
Max Crosby.
Max Crosby is going to put a hurting on Justin Fields.
Yeah, they're going to have to start formulating that offense around his strengths because Matt Nagy, I mean, he was just
no Montgomery this week either. So that's another.
I mean, Damien Williams is no slouch, but Matt Nagy has proven time and time again that you can't trust his offense. He even tried to take credit last week when he said that he gave the play calling abilities over to the offensive coordinator. And he was like, it still goes through me. I was like, you can't trust that, man. He tries to take credit when they actually do something when it's not.
He's about down here with Adam Gase, in my opinion.
I don't know about that. Adam Gase is on a whole
Adam Gase
level.
is pretty bad, but
we have a couple other defenses in mind as well. You got Denver at 4,400. Denver has been a stout defense this year. They're playing Pittsburgh. I mean, they're possibly going to be without Big Ben, but Big Ben's been absolute garbage this year. Absolute garbage this year. So I don't know how much Dwayne Haskins is going to be able to do against that defense, but Denver at 4,400, that's another cheap defense I wouldn't mind going
and if
with.
you're going to spend up, obvious pick, New England Patriots.
Most expensive defense at 5,000 this week, but they're going against
Houston.
Davis Mills and the Houston
And
Texans.
if they put up that 10-point shutout like the Bills did last week, that is huge for a fantasy lineup.
If the Bills can shut out that offense, New England definitely can.
Yep.
And then for my cheapest pick at defense this week, who I like as well, is Washington's defense. Washington hasn't been as great as everybody thought they were going to be this year, but at 3,800 against Jameis Winston in New Orleans, you're only having to worry about Kamara. And to be honest with you, Washington's run defense and pass rush is their best aspect. I'm not worried about Jameis Winston bombing down the field on this team. It's going to be Chase Young, Montez Sweat getting after the quarterback, Jonathan Allen getting after the quarterback, and just game playing around Alvin Kamara. I'm not worried about Jameis Winston whatsoever.
And has he even thrown for over 200 yards this year?
Honestly, don't even know. Couldn't tell you. That's how much I don't care.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on Audibles. Hope you found this information useful.
Every week, we want to sit here and try to help you win money in your daily fantasy. I want to help you try to win your bragging rights in those season-long leagues. If any of this helps you out in order to do so, please follow our links down below.